Hi there, welcome to Marc Explains. Today's session of event sourcing in this practical introduction on multiple levels is level 1. So there are multiple levels to event sourcing, and level 1 is especially about the way of thinking. So event sourcing is an architectural pattern which is a different paradigm in storing state of an application. And the regular way of storing state is directly updating the state. And there's a reason for that. Let's go way back in time when we had papers. We had books, and books were containing our state. So when we have official documents, and these documents are most of the times describing a transition or a legal transaction, for example, and we have people interpreting the official documents. So, for example, at the land administration office I've experienced with, a piece of land, a parcel of land is transferred from A to B. And then a clerk is interpreting the official documents, the deed, and the result is scribbled in a book. So the ownership of person A has to be struck through, and person B needs to be the new ownership, has to have the new ownership of the object. So this is in books, that's the paper state, let's say, or the paper way of keeping a system of records. So a few decades ago we got into the digital era, and so how does this become digital? Well, we digitalized the book, so we got a database, and now we have still state, and we are actually doing the same thing. So when a deed is coming in, then the record of A has to be deleted, and a record for person B needs to be added. So this is the regular way of handling state in our applications today. But isn't there something missing? Can we enrich this pattern? Well, yes, we can. First, let's have a look at the official document, or the triggering document, because that document is proposing an action. It's do something, do this legal action, do this change in the application, so there's an action involved. Actually, this is called a command of do something. So that's the first part. Secondly, this command is handled in the mental process of a clerk or some administrative person. So the first step in that mental process is the validation of the command. Is this a valid command in itself? And if the ownership of a piece of land is transferred from A to B, does A have the ownership at currently, or is that a valid situation that's being described in the command? And if so, the second part of that mental process is analysis on what should actually change, what should be happening in the state. So there's a strike through, a delete, action, change, and there should be a record being added. And these are technical terms, more digital or software terms from the regular way. Create, read, update, or delete. But probably there's a lot more involved. And this is also where the language comes in from the domain-driven design. So the command on the left side is probably stating things on a business level from the business domain. And the changes that should be happening are changes in the state in business terms and verbs and nouns. And probably the changes will be different than the command. And last but not least, we eventually need to reconstruct the state that we formerly had. So the changes should be applied to the already available state, and then person A should be removed, person and P and B should be added. And the resulting state, which we started with in the paper way already, is probably a different language or a different part of the language of the domain, of the business domain. So where we formerly had a single model, or maybe the resulting model, the resulting state of the whole process, and we were only modeling and being very explicit on the language of this resulting state, we're actually missing language and models of the commands and the events. So that's what is formally missing and what should be added and can be added in this pattern with commands, events, and the last part is called a query. So we are in a transition, or it's a shift from this single model towards commands, events, and query. And the interesting thing here is that the query part, it's the state model we originally had as a paper, but it's probably only the primary state or the primary query model. Once we have the whole list of changes, of events, how the primary state is evolving over time, we can probably derive multiple views, multiple projections, multiple query stores of these stack of changes. So it's not only a change from a single model to command, events, and query, but it's a shift from a single model towards commands, events, and multiple queries. And this is quite a change. You could say it's a paradigm shift. And a paradigm shift takes time. Takes time to understand, takes time to grasp, takes time to land in your system. It took me a few weeks to really grasp what is the actual change. So please give yourself some time to process on this, rewatch this video again and see if it lands even more next time you see it. So, and with that, I'm at the end of this part of this introduction on the way of thinking in events, where we need to shift from a single model to commands, events, and queries. Thank you for watching and see you in the next levels.